Okay, buying high. This was my second big epic failure. But around 17, when Bitcoin was really spiking and it got to almost $20,000, I got some free Bitcoin Cash because Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash had split off. And if you had any Bitcoin on Coinbase, when the split happened, Coinbase would give you free your Bitcoin Cash. And so I got them on that website. And I since have redeemed them. That was later down the road. But at this time, I got 8 Bitcoin worth of Bitcoin Cash, and I immediately flipped them. They were the highest it went. It was within a couple of days. Was $4,000 a pop. So I made $32,000 for free, which is amazing. Okay, so that was cool, right? Okay. What wasn't cool was, fast forward a couple of weeks. It was now January 2018. I was like, I'm going to take this, 2 Bitcoin worth that I just got for free, and I'm going to buy altcoins. I'm going to look into some of these altcoins. My close friend Judd, who got me into Bitcoin, he was already getting involved with some altcoins. So he shared his research with me. I did some research on my own. And on paper, the total value of all our Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, because I had one other at the time, that's a separate story, but was over $1 million. So, $30,000, you think if you have over $1 million, not that much money, okay? Whatever, that was my thinking that back then. And I started to buy altcoins. I went on to different exchanges because a lot of these coins you can't just buy on any old exchange or Coinbase. Coinbase wouldn't list a lot of these coins. It takes time for them to accept to list some of these coins. So I bought some. I bought a bunch of them. The problem was, do you know what the problem was? You probably already know what the problem was. In the name of the title, I bought really high. Everything was mooning. Everything was all the way up to the top. Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, all of these coins that I had looked into and bought. And they continued to go up for a couple weeks, couple days, a couple weeks, which was exciting. But then everything started to crash. For those who were around back then, you saw Bitcoin go from like 20 grand to like 16 to later that year. Gosh, was it 3 or 6,000? I mean, it was bad. That's painful. Okay. And it would have been okay if you think about it, like I could have just kept these altcoins, but then life happened. Okay. A couple years later, my wife lost her job. I started this business. I didn't make any money with it. And we're in a tough situation. We got a little boy. We got to bring in money. And we had sold Bitcoin. We had owed taxes. And so finally, last year, which was 2020, I had to eventually sell these altcoins I had been holding. The problem was at that time, it was before this latest run up. And so I had lost a ton of money. I ended up having a capital loss of about $70,000. That actually helped in some ways with taxes, obviously with taxes, but it hurt. Those altcoins could have been something that I could have flipped later, but I didn't anticipate, number one, them not going higher. Because when things are going up, again, I think I've shared this before, but I'll say it again. When the price of Bitcoin or other altcoins are going up, you never think it's going to stop. You never think it's going to stop. You think the roller coaster will only keep going up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the adrenaline or serotonin or whatever, but when you see that green candle and it keeps going up, you don't ever think it's going to stop. How can it stop? Look at it. Just look at it. But it always does. That's how markets work. And so it did crash. These altcoins did crash. And I was just going to hold them until a later time and then flip them. But I had been getting even more into Bitcoin. And I was like, you know what? Bitcoin just looks so much better compared to these other altcoins. And I just committed. I'm going to get rid of these as fast as I can once I can make some money off of it. And again, life happened. So that was big mistake number 2, buying high. Okay, 4 new, third pretty big failure. In 2018, I left the corporate world and I started my own company, and I kind of went on a little circuit of going to some of these Bitcoin conferences. I went to one in Dallas called the Bitcoin Super Conference. It was a lot of fun. In fact, I made a really cool friend there. We're friends to this day. I made a bunch of friends, but one really good friend. And I learned a lot of things. I heard about new projects, and I got to just see kind of the energy of the space in person. It was really awesome. On the last day, I think it was the third day, I visited this one talk. It was on 4Nu, a new coin that was going to claim to harness a renewable energy and waste products, so poo, sewage, and the energy generated from recycling that or purifying that would be used to mine Bitcoin. It was going to be kind of a joint effort that they were going to use, and then they were going to mine Bitcoin, but also release their own coin called KWatt, KWatt. The company was called 4Nu, and their coin was called KWatt. So I took notes, and the CEO was super sharp. He answered everyone's questions. Everything really kind of checked out. I mean, the people that they had there had been in that space for many, many years. And so I watched it for the next month or so, and then I decided to get some. I think I took out 1 Bitcoin worth, which at that time was $11,000, to buy the equivalent amount of KWatt coins. And that was, so I got, I think, 11,000 KWatt coins. Well, this was around the time there was a lot of fear about these smaller coins and tokens associated with them, that they were being investigated as not really being categorized right. They should have been securities, and they weren't. And so 4Nu had some fear, and they said, before we kind of go further, I think we need to hold off and reevaluate how we do things, which I thought, good sign. Take your time. That's fine. I got these KWatt coins. What they decided to do was kind of rebrand, do some more due diligence, and issue a new coin for whatever the case may be. I mean, it made sense what they were doing. And if you still had that coin and you would send it back to them, they would give you double what you had. All right. So that $11,000 worth of coins, KWatt coins, within a couple, I think like a month or so, it had doubled. So it was now over 20 grand. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is pretty awesome. I got this altcoin. I'm believing in it. I had to buy it from Livecoin, one of the exchanges I went on. And so at the time, I don't think it was a newer coin that hardware devices, or definitely not Coinbase, you could store it. So I had to store it on my computer. I had stored it on my computer. It was just the only coin that I was storing on my computer. And I knew that I was going to probably either flip it in the near future because of what I learned, or try to get it off. But I was super busy. This was right around the time when I was trying to start this business. I was traveling. I just got my first office, and the inevitable happened. My computer crashed. And I had no idea why. It wasn't like I was on any bad or weird or whatever porn sites. I wasn't. I don't know what happened. The computer just failed. And at first I didn't realize what had happened, or like the significance of this. And then I realized it. I tried to kind of reconstruct my hard drive. That didn't work. Well, they hadn't issued the new coins yet. They were about to, and I knew that if I could give them those coins, I would get double. So I knew that my original $10,000, $11,000 would be like $40,000+ because it had already doubled and it was still looking good. And I talked with them about this, their IT, and they at first said, hey, we'll help you. We can, this isn't a problem, which made me a little suspicious because I knew that if you lose your private keys, you don't have your coins. So I was like, that's a little weird. Fast forward a couple days, couple weeks, then I started hearing like, well, hey, I don't think we can do this. And I thought, well, look, if I give them all the transaction information, where I got it from, how much I paid, what I paid with, like every single detail, the addresses, that would be enough information. Well, they didn't see it that way. And we communicated less and less and less. And I lost it. I lost those coins. I lost that investment. I mean, technically, I guess I only lost, 1 Bitcoin worth $11,000 or so. I look at it to myself as something like $40-some thousand. I don't think 4Nu actually made it. That the KWatt coin did go into a new coin, But I'm pretty sure I didn't actually eventually make it. But that was on me. I should have found a way to get those off my machine as soon as possible. They were on Livecoin, but in order to trade them, I had to take them off Livecoin, like on my computer, and then send them back. It was just something about the site, and then my computer happened to crash. So that was that. I lost. Okay, Dignity Coin. This is the last epic failure. In 2017, I told you I left and started my own company. In 2018, I went on some of these trips to these conferences. And at that Texas Super Conference, Bitcoin Super Conference, I met a guy. His name was Ronnie Moas. And he seemed really, really, how do I describe him? He's one of a kind, okay? He seemed very smart and educated with stocks and bond stocks as far as picking winners and his track record. He had a newsletter that I looked into, talked with him about, and I took the splurge. I think it was over $1,000 or $1,000 or so for a year subscription. And he would send out every couple of weeks these really thorough reports. It was really, really helpful, because that's how, if you heard me in a previous video say, I heard Ronnie talk about this and he helped me a lot. This was how. By this subscription, this newsletter, I learned a lot more about investing. He was one of the ones who said, if you really like something and it goes on sale, buy more of it. He would talk about how there's only so much gold in the ground, but I know how much we don't know how much gold there is in the ground, but we know how many Bitcoin there are. Anyway, I like the guy. I know he could run certain people the wrong way, and politics comes into play sometimes on public Twitter. But one of the things he recommended was this coin called Dignity Coin. He had been watching it. Or it started out as UNY, Unity, and the idea was to base it as like a stable coin against precious metals. So not against fiat, but against precious metals, which was kind of new. I don't think people were trying to do this, or people had maybe started, but no one was really succeeding with this. And I don't know if anyone has to this day, but beside the point, that was new, that was novel. And Ronnie was a shark. I mean, he was on them. He followed it. And when he gave his recommendations, he gave a big warning. He's like, I would not put a lot into this. He's like, this is a long shot, but if it does work, it could be worth, 10, 100, 1,000x what you're getting into. And so I thought, man, this is something to really look into. And I looked into it more. I looked into the company, which was called Arbitrage, and Cryptobontics. It had a strange name. But more updates came out. Ronnie visited the servers, the warehouse with the servers. It was in Bermuda. I think it was domiciled there. So there were good things. There were updates. I had finally bought 2 Bitcoin worth, which was about 60. I think it was about, no, not 60. I think it was about $40,000. And it got me about 630,000 of these Dignity coins. There was some, I don't want to say trickiness or fishiness, but there are some things with some of these coins where you buy them on a site and then they convert them to another coin. So there's some work you have to do, and that doesn't mean that it's a scam or wrong, but, well, I didn't think it was at the time, but I think this is kind of normal. I know with the Bitcoin split, Bitcoin Cash, it's kind of weird in how these things work. But my point is, it wasn't too abnormal. Some of the requests that Livecoin was saying, working with this company. So I got those coins. Well, of course, what happened? They started communicating less, right? Initially, when I bought those coins, within the first month, the price, like, I bought it at like 5 cents per one and had gone to 25 cents per one. So it was a 5x gain. And I turned my $34,000 into over $150,000. I was like, this is sweet. Ronnie had talked about how if it actually, what they were trying to do was make it worth like $1 or more, like per gold. So less than, or a lot more than just pennies. They talked about how they were going to do some exchanges and have like a prepaid card for third world countries. A lot that was passionate, a lot that Ronnie and even I are passionate about, and that's helping the poor and giving to the poor in different ways. So anyway, what happened? Long story short, They started communicating less. They didn't communicate some of the same ways that they did in the past. They were more cryptic, no pun intended. And Ronnie got pretty upset and started to really kind of not go after them, but really say, hey, what's going on? And he would tell us this in the newsletter. And I think they eventually put out a restraining order on him because of his frustration with them. And it just went from bad to worse. They stopped communicating, and the price had dropped, and it probably was a huge scam. We all got ripped off, Ronnie included. He lost money. And I don't blame you, Ronnie, if you watch this. I actually learned a lot from you, so thanks. But that one really, really hurt because it had such a great idea. There was so much information coming out about it. I didn't see these people in person, so maybe I could have learned from that. But the long and the short of it is I mostly stay away from altcoins, okay? I am going to try to look into them a little bit more, but I've gotten seriously burned from them. First, by trying to invest in a mutual fund of sorts that was pretty stupid in hindsight. It was a risk. I'm obviously not going to do that again. Secondly, buying high, in 2018, that could have gone pretty well. I just got caught in a bad situation where I couldn't put them, or I couldn't, flip them in time. And I had, some life situations. For new. So when I bought those coins, my computer died and I couldn't put them on a Harbor wallet. Some bad luck, but it's still pretty stupid. Not your keys, not your coins. And then finally for this Dignity coin, which I was pretty scammed. I knew there was a risk. I knew it. And I kind of went big and I lost big. So those are my failures, 4 of my biggest failures. Hopefully that helps you in some way. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you've been there. If so, I'd love to hear about it so I can learn. I'd love to learn. But the next section, which is the final section, believe it or not, is the best practices section. So I think you're really going to like this one. Some of these things you've heard before, but not really in the way. This is going to be a direct teaching about how to what I consider the best practices and what some in the industry consider are the best practices. So thanks for still being here, and hopefully you learn from some of my saddest, darkest moments. Thanks. See ya.